Good afternoon and welcome to today's Adweek webinar, where we will be discussing the Kansas City Chiefs branding playbook. And what we'll be sharing today are some best practices for creative success. And today's webinar is being sponsored by Frontify. I'm Stuart File, Vice President of Branded Content here at Adweek, and I'm going to be your host for today's webinar. Before we begin, I'm just going to take a few moments here, make sure that everyone knows what to expect from our webinar today and is familiar with the various features of our webinar platform. Our presentation today should go somewhere in the 20-25 minute range. Afterwards, we are going to have plenty of time for audience questions. And since we've already gotten a couple of questions even before the webinar started, I'm sure you'll have lots of opportunity to ask your questions as part of this. So to ask a question, underneath probably where you're seeing my picture right now, you should see the question tool. So just use that to submit your questions. And again, we're going to get to as many audience questions as we can following our live presentation. It's not too late, by the way, to invite your colleagues to come and join us today. We'd really love it if they would. And to make that easier for you, we sent everyone a reminder email about today's webinar about 15 minutes ago. In that reminder email, you're going to find a link over to the registration page. Grab that link, send it off to your colleagues. They still can have plenty of time to register. Come on in and join us live. If they can't make it live, today's webinar is being recorded. It will be available on demand, and we're going to send everyone a link to that on-demand version later this afternoon. So check your email about 3:30, 4 o'clock Eastern time today. You're going to get that email from us with a link to the on-demand version. We like to make the slides available for everyone. And you can get a PDF of today's slide deck if you would like to, and you're going to find that in the Event Resources tab. You'll also see that by where you see the question tool, so feel free to go on in there and download the PDF of the slides. You're going to find two other links in there as well, a link to the Adweek Resource Center. That's where you'll find all the guides and research reports and white papers that we publish or we distribute for our partners. There's one coming up. It's not there yet, but in 2 days, it's going from our sponsors at Frontify and is a rather comprehensive research report that we conducted with Frontify on the future of creativity. And we want to make sure everybody gets a chance to see that. So we're probably going to send you a note on Thursday when that's published with a link to be able to go and download that report. But you will then, after Thursday, find it in the resource library. You're also going to see a link in that resource area to the Adweek webinar calendar, www.adweek.com/webinars. We have another couple of webinars coming up in 2023. Probably going through that week before Christmas. And then after that, we're going to have the ones for 24 coming up. And we usually do about 2 or 3 webinars every week. So check that often to see what we've got. So I just want to take a quick moment and move on to today's webinar. And I want to introduce our speakers. First up, you're going to be joined by Jordan Giesler. Jordan is the creative director of the Kansas City Chiefs. He's been a fixture within the Chiefs organization for more than a decade. As the creative director, he really sort of takes that holistic approach to everything related to the Chiefs brand. That includes logo design, Super Bowl rings, which I know he'll be talking about, integrated marketing campaigns, award-winning creative, and much more. And he'll certainly be talking about how they manage and how the Chiefs manage their brand. We're also going to be joined by Sarah Eller. Sarah is the customer success team lead over at our sponsors at Frontify, and she oversees a team that's dedicated to really helping brands successfully implement, launch, adopt, and share their brand guidelines, their digital assets, and their creative templates for using the Frontify platform. So with that in mind, let me go ahead and bring Sarah up to start our webinar with a brief overview, or a 1-minute overview here of Frontify. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you, Stuart. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. As he alluded, my name is Sarah Eller, and I am the team lead of customer success for the US and Canadian markets here at Frontify. I am very excited to be hosting today as I have the pleasure of managing the Kansas City Chiefs account. Over the last year and a half, I've had the chance to work very closely with today's presenter, Jordan Giesler, who is the creative director of the Chiefs. Before I do hand it over to Jordan, I just want to share a few words about Frontify, as I know we have some new faces joining us today. So for those who are not familiar, Frontify is a cloud-based management software with the goal of streamlining and consolidating our tech stack through combining brand guidelines, digital asset management, creative collaboration, and templating into one platform. We work with well over 9,000 brands across the world, including, of course, today's star, the Kansas City Chiefs, as well as brands such as Microsoft and Uber. With that, I am very happy to present our speaker, Jordan Giesler.
Hi, everyone. I am Jordan Giesler. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Sarah, for the amazing intro. I am the creative director of the Kansas City Chiefs. As stated before, I've been with the team for a number of years, a little bit over a decade. But as a creative director in sports, it's a little bit different than your typical brand, right? Like, not every typical brand has a stadium with a jumbotron and 74,000 screaming fans, right? Not every brand has 20 plus social channels ranging from like Kid Club to KC Wolf, our mascot, to main account, to Chiefs cheerleaders. So my job literally is to direct both the visual and written manifestations of our brand across that wide platform, right? I call them like our brand front doors, right? You can have a unique experience no matter where you see us. And those front doors can be anywhere from the stadium to as small as like stationery to merchandise to even, parade buses and of course, Super Bowl rings. So yes, today I'd love to talk to you about Super Bowl rings. We've made some really neat things along the way. When I've had my opportunity to work here, I'm born and raised. I'm from Kansas City. This is the team that I grew up loving. It is like my inner child is happy every time that I get to come into work. But I never thought growing up that I would get to work 3 Super Bowls, let alone win 2 of them. And the Super Bowl ring process is absolutely an elaborate one. It starts with a committee of some amazing people, ownership, leadership, vice presidents, presidents. Of course, players are involved. The NFL obviously gets involved. And Justin's, our ring partner, gets involved. So it is quite a lot of cooks in the kitchen, but there is nothing better than being a creative and getting to work for your hometown brand, the team that you grew up loving, and being able to make an impact and design with amazing people and amazing Super Bowl ring that is the crown jewel for the kingdom. But more recently, we've had some amazing achievements in Germany. Specifically, we had a game in Frankfurt a little bit over a month ago where we beat the Miami Dolphins. Nice. But we did some really unique things that I'd love to highlight. We created a one-of-a-kind German-inspired brand that went out on our social channels. So across all of our platforms, right, those 20 plus, where we were inspired by Bauhaus. That was an art movement that came out of Germany in the 1920s. So it was an amazing opportunity for us to showcase our brand in a whole new light, be inspired by the country that we have the opportunity to play in, and then get to show the world how our brand can interact with something different. Further on, we had an amazing brand activation. We created the first ever championship, right? So that ship that you see on that right-hand side, that is an 84-meter long river cruise ship that was right in the heart of the city of Frankfurt, and it activated for 4 to 5 days across our time in Germany. So So it's this massive ship that was an activation that the world could see. Literally, if you're coming in from Germany, from the rest of Europe, from the United States, anybody flying in could have this amazing, unique, one-of-a-kind opportunity to interact with our brand. Because most of them, right, most of those fans in the international markets, this might be the only time that they ever get to interact with us. So we went big, right? That 84 meters, that equals roughly 1,500 square meters of vinyl wrap. So that boat is actually white. We wrapped it in red and spent a lot of time developing that. It was over 8 months of time and tenure, but it's literally on the river right in the heart of the city. And when you flew in, you could actually see it outside your airplane window. So we invited over 5,000 fans through those 4 to 5 days. It was a billboard moment where you could literally see it from an airplane, and it worked, right? We have numbers still rolling in, but when we're talking about earned media for the game in Germany, it was somewhere around 50 million. And then specifically, 22 million of that was the boat. So it's this amazing giant brand swing that we did. But why would the Chiefs do all of this? Why am I talking about Germany and Super Bowl rings and all those amazing things? We have a very lofty ambition. And our ambition is to become the world's team. I know it's crazy. I think it's just crazy enough. We are absolutely thinking big here. Why do we believe that we can become the world's team? Well, we are a legacy brand, first and foremost. We are founded by Lamar Hunt. Lamar Hunt is this amazing trailblazing pioneer who literally created an opposing league to the NFL. It was called the AFL. Lamar and the AFL is the reason that we have the Super Bowl today. So the AFL's champion went on to play the NFL's champion, and that was called the Super Bowl. We are the identity of the heartland. We have this Midwestern spirit. I think when you think about nationally what people think of our brand, they may think, flyover state, middle of nowhere. We think exactly the opposite. We think that we are in the middle of everything. And we have this amazing winning culture from the past and now and the present. Right now we have Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, an amazing defense that, does so extremely well. And then, of course, Andy Reid. So we have this trifecta of opportunities for us to really strike and expand the brand even further. So one level deeper from this brand ambition that we have is our brand purpose. And I think this even further describes, why we're reaching for this goal. Our brand purpose is: the Chiefs invite you to experience endless entertainment through inspiring stories, defying expectations, and uniting all under the banner of the kingdom. Now, it took a lot of time to develop that purpose, but there's a word that's not in there. Specifically, the word is football. We chose to leave it out. We are deciding that we are much bigger than just a football team. Our keyword, while it's not football, our keyword is entertainment. Our goal is to be an entertainment brand, not just a football team from the heart of America. So why would we do the first ever championship in Germany? Well, we're an entertainment brand. We're setting to entertain the world whenever we have the opportunities to show them who we are. And of course, we are tracking it, as I said, the numbers on how the championship did. But it's more important when it comes to becoming the world team that others say it before we do, right? We aren't just going to plant our flag on the ground and proclaim it, but numbers are showing that it's starting to trend that way. We have over 300, almost 400 articles, posts, different media outlets asking the question, could the Kansas City Chiefs be becoming the world's team? And that's an amazing achievement just to have that question when this has been our ambition for a number of years now. So how do you achieve these lofty goals, right? We set them in the sand a long time ago. It is absolutely not done overnight. We invited ourselves to think bigger, right? We are more than a football team. We're an entertainment brand. So how do we show up? What might we do as an entertainment brand when we're showing up outside of football? So we hosted the 2023 NFL Draft. It was an amazing opportunity to put Kansas City on the map and invite the football world in, welcome them into our hometown of Kansas City. Of course, we're spreading the game internationally, right? We just had that game in Germany. We've had 3 games outside of our country, and we've won games in 4 separate countries. So that's the United Kingdom, that's Mexico, Germany, and of course, the United States. In 2026, we're hosting the World Cup. We are literally inviting the world in to experience our stadium, GHA Field at Arrowhead. So it's an opportunity for us as a brand to really put ourselves on the map when we're talking about the world stage and the world's game. And then, of course, we are looking at opportunities for us off the field to be relevant in pop culture, right? Netflix's Quarterback was an amazing opportunity where the world got to see Patrick Mahomes, his team, a peek behind the curtain in the year that we ended up winning the Super Bowl. So we are looking at expanding opportunities when it comes to having anything happen off the field. But as this amazing ambition, and we're working towards achieving that vision every day, there are absolutely obstacles that have held us up along the way. Specifically, these barriers to brands expansion, they've been holding us back for a number of years. So when we're talking about creative, and my job as a creative director, as like the steward of the brand and all of its manifestations, the number one thing that is difficult is educating the masses, both internally and externally, about your brand, right? How do we get those amazing people who are working on our brand to align to our vision? So in years past, that meant like emailing out a PDF, rolling out the new brand guide, writing the new do's and don'ts, and hoping they read it, right? But that's sending it out to freelancers, that's sending out to partners, that's a lot of like hope, right? The goal is to get them all up to speed, but there's no perfect way for us to achieve that. That leads into content creation for us as a creative department. We make tons of content, right? But we make it, do they get it in time? Can they post it? Is it done within deadlines? Can we track changes? What are the projects that it's working on? How do we make it easy whenever we make content for end users to interact and receive it so that they can get it out in time? And obviously, that leads into an amazing high volume of in-house work. Super Bowls, just for example, are not easy, right? That's getting the city, the club, sponsors, leadership, NFL to all align on your goals. And then specifically, like I think in 2019, we had 77 different banners hung, 15 different unique vehicle wraps, parade signage all around, insanity, credentials, merchandise. All of that happened in the bye week before the Super Bowl, before we'd even played. So an amazing amount of in-house work, small team. We definitely get some big results when you're talking about Germany, playoffs, Super Bowl, and draft. But how do we get those out to the proper people? And I know that everybody who's a creative feels this, right? Like, we get a lot of repetitive design requests, and maybe it's not even a design request. It doesn't go through that system. Maybe it gets lost in an email where you send out to a partner, a sponsor, anybody, like, here's your logo package, here's everything. And then inevitably at some point they're going to need it again, right? But what happens when the creative department is sick or is out on vacation? How do all of these partners who are working on and with your brand get access to that content? So what's really hard and a barrier is whenever we stop creatives from being like the production house, the creative departments, and turn them into delivery drivers too. So we needed to find a solution to solve for this specific problem. And our solution was Frontify. So Frontify is a digital asset management system, but it's also now our digital brand guide. It is our hub. We call it literally our Chiefs Brand Center. And when we're talking about becoming the world's team, this is a tool that helps us scale. So if we want to be the world's team, we need systems like this to help us go and achieve it. So one of the problems when we're identifying all this is like, if we want to be this big, massive brand, what are all the big, massive brands doing? So we looked at Starbucks, we looked at Target, we looked at YouTube, and all of them have a DAM or a brand center on their website. So we knew that this was a solution that we needed to have in order to help us scale. And Frontify has been this amazing one-stop shop for us. So yes, it is our brand guide. It houses our logos. It has photos. It houses like campaign key art, those big, large, massive files that help us with any campaign that we might have. And it took us a lot of time. So we started testing it around April and we launched in August. That was right after the NFL draft. An opportunity for us to get to work. So we worked and partnered with Frontify. We worked with an agency called Windrose, who's built these brand centers before with Frontify. And we tested and we learned and we did things differently. It allowed us to launch and be ready for the season. But what I love the most about this is it's catered to each different defined audiences. So whenever a partner goes to the Chiefs Brand Center, they're only allowed to see what they can see, right? So we have partners that are NFL partners. We have partners that are non-league partners. We have agencies that are local and international, right? All of that is unique and catered experiences for themselves. So it has this amazing ability to be both intuitive, but also flexible. And we vetted multiple DAM sites. We talked to multiple teams. We took a lot of time, and Frontify rose to the top because of all of those reasons, right? So what does it do for us? We call it our brand center. It does house our brand guides, our do's, our don'ts, our bread and butter that, let's be honest, a lot of people don't read, but it's all there. It is flexible, and we can update it at any given time, right? For us at the Kansas City Chiefs, we set our brand and we like to keep it consistent, right? And we have that going for at least 3 years, but we update it every so often. So instead of sending out a PDF and hoping everybody reads it, understands it, it reaches all of our end potential users. Now it's all a hub for them to come and visit. So we do have our brand library and DAM within it, right? So that's logos, fonts, design elements, photos, it's all there. Key art per campaign, like I said. So an example, right? Like Cyber Monday, Black Friday, instead of sending out an email and say, like, here's the links to all of your design assets, they're all there. We are training our end users to interact with us, than us being delivery drivers out to them. And then you might not think that this is important, but presentation templates is actually our most viewed and our most used area internally. So it allows us to be consistent both outside when we're talking about our brand front doors and inside when we're working as a Kansas City Chief. So yes, it is a DAM, but it is absolutely so much more. DAM being digital asset management system. We call it our brand hub. It houses multiple libraries. So I think we have about 9 libraries when it comes to logo libraries, housing like 200 plus different brand logos catered to each audience uniquely, right? So rather than sending something specifically out to them, they all can go and find their assets in a very quick manner. And that happened because we tested and we used surveys to refine the product from April to August of last year. So we have some internal and external testimonials there that proves that it's working. So our end users, who are we talking about specifically when it comes to the Chiefs Brand Center? We have agencies in both Germany and Mexico, right? We had that amazing ship. They were invited to receive those assets through our brand center. The NFL has a digital asset management site that every team goes and downloads. I don't know, My Cause, My Cleats, or any other NFL style guide that they need to hand out. They invite us into theirs. Now we invite them into our own. And of course, we have partners, as I described, right? So Bud Light, GEHA, Community America, all get to go and see their assets. It's specifically in there for them. They know where it is. And it's really, really easy, right? The goal is to create something amazing and simple for our end users. So what this is, right? We're talking about best practice. We're talking about the playbook that we've had. We've developed our brand guide, and it essentially Frontify achieved for us. It was a build it and they will come mentality, right? Instead of sending out the email with the PDF and printing it ever so often and giving updates, it's all there, really simple, and we can send out updates to anybody at any given time. It reduced our barrier to entry for all of our users, right? It is simple. They can go in, get any specific asset, work through our system. But as we do updates and as we have campaigns, right, it's communication and education, right? So they educate themselves for what they can go download and what they can have. And it has streamlined a bunch of process, which when you're talking about as a creative department, the most important thing is to have the creatives create. And this allows us to do that. But more specifically, and what I love the most is like design and creative consistency. That only happens when we can scale through systems like this. So our lofty goals, our achievement to become the world's team, that only happens because we have systems and scale through a brand center like this. So thank you. That is what I have today. I believe that we are going to have a Q&A with Sarah, and I'd love to answer any and all of your questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jordan. Really appreciate you taking the time to walk our audience through how your brand has developed, what's led to your success. And of course, we'll be keeping an eye on how you progress towards your goal of being the world's team. Before we do jump into the Q&A session, I just would like to bring Stuart up to help facilitate.
Sorry, I'm on my way here. I just knew the two of you I thought we're going to be having a bit of a talk as well. There I go. Here we go. And I'm back up on screen. All right. Sarah, were you and Chris going to have a little chat before I would take some of the audience questions, or should we go straight into some of these questions from the audience?
I'm certainly happy to kick off with a few, and then we can lead to the audience if that works.
That would be fantastic.
Awesome. Absolutely. So Jordan, as you mentioned, you are successfully implemented and have been rolled out now for a couple of months, but I'm curious how this has helped impact your brand adoption, if you've seen, any influx in your brand awareness, consistency of how your assets have been being used. Do you mind speaking to that?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to many specific examples, but our brand is hard to understand. It's not easy to achieve some of our assets, how we use them, how we like to use them on our social, and then see them out with our partners. So I have seen a bunch more of adoption into some of those specific Chiefs branded assets that most of the time they would just turn their logos, red and gold and, call it good. Now it has enhanced collaboration with our partnerships team because they love it. They'll send me an email like, hey, we got a new partner, let's sign them up. And then all of a sudden, all these new brands, they have this reduced barrier to entry. They know who we are quick. And then I just get to go in and approve, disapprove. Let's make some changes. Oh, did you see this part of the site? This could help you do this in a different way. So it's absolutely made it's reduced the barrier to entry when it comes to design, creative, and you just love to see it. That's why you make it.
Awesome. That's very helpful. Thank you. And then just one more question before we move on to the audience is, as you are continuing to evolve and, keep your site up to date, how are you continuing to drive engagement so that, the eyes that you are seeing continue to actually engage with the platform? Yeah.
So I think that's like getting out of the pattern of just sending one update, right? If you're driving users to the site consistently, then you're educating them consistently, right? So that's when I talked about like having campaign specific key art and not sending, Dropbox folders to it. Housing it on the brand guide or on our brand center allows them to understand like, no, this is the hub. This is where I go. This is my nonstop or one-stop shop. So that's what's really drove adoption, right? It's not just a point, click, shoot, invite, you're done. It's like, no, we invite them in all the time, and that allows them to understand that that's where they have to go.
That's great. Thank you. Well, I don't want to take anyone else's time. I know we have a lot of questions that came in from the audience. Yeah. So Stuart, if you would like
we have a real lot of questions that are coming from the audience. But I do want to take just a second here. I want to invite our audience again. If you have a question for our speakers, just use the question tool, submit them. We've got a whole mess of them already queued up. Ask your questions. If we don't get to them, I always forward all the questions over to our sponsors. So there is the opportunity for an offline response, not guaranteed, but an opportunity. So just submit your question. Somebody will see it. It's not going to just sort of go out into the ether. I also just want to provide a couple of quick reminders for everyone. First off, the webinar has been recorded. It's going to be available on demand. We're going to send you a link to that on-demand version. In about 3:30, 4 o'clock today. If you have colleagues who you think would be interested in this, certainly feel free to share that link with them, or just have them come on in and register ahead of that being available, and we'll send them the link directly. Jordan had some great slides, some really interesting stuff on there. We did make a PDF of the slides available, and you're going to find that right now in event resources. Let's get to some of these questions. They have been coming in fast and furious, Jordan. I just want to say, and not all of them have to do with what is the obvious part, but let me just get it out of the way, because probably this will knock out 35 of the questions. There's something that's been happening with one of the members of the Chiefs these days in their romantic life. It's the Taylor Swift thing, which is people are asking. And so my question to you on that is really, obviously that's something very, very big and something that has impacted stuff. But can you, it's also sort of expanded knowledge of your brand. So not what you think of stuff, and we don't need to go and this doesn't have to be TMZ, but from a branding perspective, how are you now sort of managing sort of the control of your brand, as your brand is very surprisingly through, taken on a much more global nature and greater knowledge, and people who, have never been a football fan are wearing jerseys for other reasons. But can you talk briefly about that?
Yeah, well, first of all are welcome. Right? That's the Midwestern spirit. We want to welcome everybody into Chiefs Kingdom. I hope they all get the opportunity to go see, all of our amazing players play as well as Travis. So I think, for us as a brand, it's amazing. And it's something that probably wasn't on our bingo card, right? It helps us align with our vision in many different ways, but we are the Kansas City Chiefs, and we are absolutely proud of our players. So our brand is not going to change our identity just because of a brand new audience. What we do is we welcome them in, hope they have an amazing, unique experience. Hopefully we can educate them along the way for those that may not know football or the rest of the team. But we'd love to have them, and we love to keep them. And it's an amazing opportunity for our brand, but also we're here to celebrate our players and Travis. So that's what our brand will do. We're not going to change our identity, but everyone, all are welcome.
Got it. Another interesting question came in and was asked in a handful of different ways. And so let me just sort of ask this one. And that is, as you think of your brand, your brand, the brand equity that you've established, your brand values as you go forward, right? Maintaining that consistency is crucial for every brand. That's why you're looking at a solution like this. But you also have players who are a part of things, and those players are always representative of your brand. So how do you sort of get, there's a difference between the organization, the league, and then those, of course, who are on the field. How do you get them to sort of also manage that brand consistency and those brand values?
Yeah, well, I think that's education of brand values internally, right? I think that goes from coach to player, as well as coach to us, and we evaluate how we write things like our brand purpose, right? I think when we're talking about players as brands in and of themselves, right? That's how the modern fan looks at it, right? They love Travis Kelce, or they love Patrick Mahomes, or they love Chris Jones. A lot of times fans nowadays are fans of players, not necessarily of teams, right? When you talk about fantasy football, social followings, a lot of times they'll end up following the player versus the brand. So I think for us, we have 53 amazing brand stewards on our team, right? That's the 53-man roster. And they are advocates for us no matter where they show up. If it's in the community, at a community event, or on the field, right? It's an opportunity for us to expand and educate and bring people in that, 10, 12 years ago when I started was just getting started, right? I believe when I started, we didn't even have an Instagram account. So things are vastly different nowadays, but I think it's all a good thing, right? We have brand ambassadors no matter where you look.
Right. And as you work with those brand ambassadors and as they go out, how does your maintaining your brand consistency, right? Because as you're talking with a social world and brand ambassadors, you want to really ensure, right, your logos, all the assets that you have are consistent.
Yeah.
Are you able to share
well,
those out?
We arm everyone with. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say that we arm everyone with their ability to use the logos the right way. I think there are always opportunities for education, right, when it comes to some of those players, but they are our stewards. And for us, it's something that is really more coach to player when it comes to consistency with our brand and our visuals. But it's not ever a bad thing. Even if the logo might be wrong, the message is still right. So that's really what we try to focus on when it comes to the players.
Yeah. When you're talking about your digital assets, I mean, obviously, crucial in expansion, and you were sharing in that one slide how the different agencies, the different groups, how you have to sort of work with the outsiders, the NFL and their digital assets, and yours, and the training that needs to go on. And a question came in at that moment asking about training, which is how do you make sure that the people who are now getting access, right? Because that's really what you're granting. You're setting it up so that you don't have to constantly send out the logo again. I lost it. I lost the logo. I can't seem to find it on my computer. Can you send it to me again? Right? You could spend your entire day in creative services just sending out copies of the same thing again and again and again.
Sure.
You're creating this more self-serve environment where you're keeping that consistency, but in order to do self-serve, there's a certain amount of training and being able to use that. And I'd love to hear your take on that. And I think Sarah as well, I'm sure you also have a take on this.
Sure. I'll take it from our side. There's internal training, right? When we're talking about, for the most part, our partners run through our partnerships department. That takes up the majority of our end users. So we have to educate internally our partnerships department what this site is, where they can go and find whatever asset that they may need so that they can deliver it when they're having these conversations, right? The creative department can't be in every meeting. It can't be in every education opportunity whenever we sign somebody on. But what we can do is have education checkpoints when it comes to mid-season, end of season, beginning of a new season. So that's what we try to do, and that's what's been successful. But as I said, we launched this thing in August, right? So it's been something that has been a process. I waxed and waned over it, but we used to send out PDFs and emails and all of those things and hoping that they got it. This allows us to educate and not just cross our fingers and hope it works.
And if I may, just from the Frontify side of things, I think to support that mission and to support being able to give the content to the respective teams, we do have a number of features that help support that from, a smart UI perspective. So I know Jordan's team has utilized targets, which again is an in-app feature for our platform that helps to support the mission of being able to have their users be able to only access content that they need to. So it kind of takes also the guessing game from an access management standpoint and just allows those users to be able to find and see what they are meant to be seeing. So I think those two opportunities really stand in hand.
Yeah, and Jordan, as you get that right, we're talking about external, but I think there's also the idea of the internal team as well as part of that, right? You have like a constant onboarding, and you've got two sides of onboarding, right? You have those who are players on the team onboarding, but of course you have, you are on a certain level of company, and you have your own departments, and all of those have to be onboarded on the brand as well. How do you sort of really adopt all of this internally so that everybody knows the brand and knows the brand values and knows the right logos in the right situation, and that because not everyone is a designer, and not everyone knows you have to put a finger's length between the two things or whatever is your approach.
So for us, that was getting with HR, right? HR has an onboarding process, and they educate, the do's to don'ts for what to do as you're, a Chiefs employee member. This is not nearly as important, I'm sure, than some of those do's and don'ts, but it's a part of that process. So we got with HR, and whenever we have onboarding, we usually try to do a larger group, but we onboard them for our brand, our purpose, why, our brand why, right? And then we go walk them through this site. Because this inevitably becomes something like, oh, I need a Chiefs logo. And then, we saw in years past that people would just go to Google, right? They didn't know that there would be a library of things at their fingertips. So that's kind of how we've done it. So whenever it comes to onboarding and new staffs, that we just worked with HR and made that a part of the process. But then when we're talking about onboarding, starting something new, right? That this was something that we rolled out in August, specifically right before our games got going. And that was an educational process, right? We kind of had to sit down with the club when we're talking about the massive amounts of staff members that we may have, and walk them through that this is it. This is your one-stop shop. It's all here. You don't have to email me. You can if you have questions, right? But this was the moment that kind of things shifted for us in that August timeframe.
Yeah. I think we've got time for one more question, Jordan. And this is one that came in from someone who is located in the Kansas City metropolitan area. And they were talking about, again, things that you would see in Kansas City, right? More than even though you're the world's team, which is, again, the use and the constant use of the team's logo and the team's assets, right? As both what I want to say is with permission and then without permission. As the local deli is not necessarily a corporate sponsor, but probably wants to have support for the hometown team. So how do you or how challenging is it to sort of police representation of the brand? Is that even something that you even consider as you do that? Because you want to keep that consistency, but again, sometimes you don't have the control as part of that, nor do you want to, I would imagine, be wanting to send cease and desist letters to people who are fans on some of that. Would be about the worst possible thing, I would gather.
Yeah, well, so there's multiple ways to answer this question. What I can say is all news is good news, right? So people who are fans and want to display the logo and they want to get it right, you love to hear that. Of course, we have partners that we have to protect, people who pay a lot of money to have rights to our marks, right? And that's what this site fundamentally is, a foundation of why it was built. So it is something that you choose your battles, is what I would say. You're never going to get it 1,000% right. A lot of the questions that I ask myself is am I the only one that's going to know this? Is it worthy of me sending a note? Or is there going to be a massive audience on this? Okay, great. Let's get it right. Those sorts of questions. So I definitely, I walk into grocery stores and walk around locally, and I see the logos that are right and wrong and things like that. It's always amusing to me, but it doesn't offend me, right? At the end of the day, they're excited. They are fans. You shouldn't crush that. But there are things that we must protect, and we're just selective.
Got it. Understood. I'd like to get to all the rest of these questions. We don't have any time because that would require about another 3 webinars, I think, to get to all of them. Jordan, setting a record for questions coming in here.
Love that.
I just want to thank you for your time. Just really, really helpful. And Sarah and Frontify, again, thank you as well. To our audience, I just wanted some final reminders. Again, check your email. getting that link to the on-demand version. You want the slides from today? Go on in and check event resources. You can grab that. Head on over to the webinar calendar there as well as the resource library. Look in a couple of days for everyone registered. We're going to send you a note about this upcoming Frontify report that we just did here at Adweek. The research report, Frontify. The research report that we did here at Adweek with Frontify. I'm getting all my nouns mixed up. But listen, we're going to alert you to that and hope, again, it's really interesting findings. Hope you'll have a chance to go in and download that. And of course, adweek.com/webinars, the webinar calendar. So again, thank you to our speakers, Jordan and Sarah, really great. Thanks to our sponsors at Frontify. And thanks to our audience for taking time out of your busy day. And we look forward to seeing everyone at an upcoming Adweek webinar. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Very much.